Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello, and welcome to show number 10 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and aerobic American. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Samard. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Also joining us today is one of our anchors, Gat, the Mudbrooker. Hey, Muddy.
Hey.
I prefer to call him Muddy.
Yes. Today is Friday, November 14th, 2014, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, November 17th, 2014. We are a little bit late this week. Normally we do our shows on Wednesday. This is Friday due to some personal conflicts that we don't really need to get into. But everything's back on schedule now. Well, not on schedule, but we're ready to go. And here comes today's show at you.
And we'll start with the very first story.
Instances of child abuse related to witchcraft and the belief that children are possessed by evil spirits are on the rise in Britain, police said last month. In the past year, there have been 27 reported allegations, a rise from 24 the previous year. One case resulted in an arrest for rape, they added. Examples included a child who was forced to drink unknown substances, children being dunked in a bath, a pastor swinging a child around and banging his head, and parents taking their children out of the country to attend an exorcism ceremony in attempts to remove evil spirits. Abuse linked to belief is a horrific crime which is condemned by people of all cultures and communities, Detective Superintendent Terry Sharp from the Sexual Offenses, Exploitation and Child Abuse Command said in a statement. He was speaking ahead of a planned seminar in London aimed at identifying and fighting faith-related child abuse. Officers believe this form of child abuse is rarely reported and is a hidden crime kept within families and faith communities. Often in the perpetrator's mind, any abuse is not going to affect the victim because he or she believes the child is effectively not there anymore, and the abuse is directed at whatever has possessed the child, Sharp said. The seminar, titled Witchcraft and Spirit Possession Awareness Events, was hosted by the police and churches.
Okay, now, I'm confused about a couple of things in that particular story. For one, how are they conflating witchcraft and possession? Aren't they two different ideas? Isn't witchcraft voluntary and possession involuntary?
I'd say.
But they're conflating the two in the story. It's like they're in Britain. Are they having like exorcisms for witchcraft?
Your guess is as good as mine. Who says there is anything? There has to be logic in that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's
in a lot of the African nations where this is going on, like Nigeria, and I can't think of anyway.
I think Sudan too.
Sudan and Uganda.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of this going on. They consider pretty much anything witchcraft that has anything at all to do with demons. It's trafficking with demons. They call it witchcraft, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. And a lot of times they say you're inviting the demons into yourself, but once you invite them into yourself, they can then use you to possess other people. And that's kind of the logic, if there is anything to it, any logic to it, but that's, kind of the thinking behind it. It's all of one piece, any
right.
sort of demonic possession and witchcraft.
Yeah, there was a witch burning in Paraguay last week. The people in Paraguay, but I don't know if that was anything to do with Christianity or rather if it was indigenous, and they're just using the term witchcraft. But the whole thing is it's appalling on so many different levels. For one, that the church basically that initiated, the idea of that demonic possession and witchcraft, that all comes from the churches, whether it's Christianity or whatever the religion is. They're the ones that initiated the idea, and so you have these people who are believing what the church is saying. Most of the people that are being killed are probably actually religious people. I don't think very many atheists are out there believing that they're possessed. So it, it's just it's a self-feeding loop.
I was just checking the internet, Wikipedia about this, and outside of Africa, it looks like the UK is about the only place where it has become a problem.
Well, there was a witch burning in Haiti last year, and then, like I said, this year there's been one in Paraguay. So it comes up every once in a while in South America, but it's really it's not as bad as it is in Africa. Africa's mainly where it's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Africa, it's gotten to be quite a shakedown racket. The preacher will say your kid is possessed, pay me to do the exorcism, otherwise we'll burn your kid. And they charge $50 to $100 per exorcism. Well, in most of Africa, that's 2-3 months' wages. And it's got to be quite a lucrative trade for preachers to be accusing kids of witchcraft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it seems that, for example, in Nigeria and some of the states, there are 15,000 children who are considered witches and are totally homeless. That's an awful lot of children.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a mental health issue usually, and the denial of science that you find in religion perpetuates the problem in that sense too.
Yeah, but when you think that, for example, even Pentecostal churches are pushing that idea that that's not a tribal kind of religion. Pentecostal is worldwide. It's supposed to be one of the how can I say serious religions.
Yeah. There was a video that came out a couple months ago. I think I shared it with you, Nicole, where a African minister was performing a exorcism on a guy, and the guy's laying on the floor, he's thrashing around, and then his cell phone goes off, and the guy sits up and answers his phone in the middle of his exorcism, and the preacher's like, "What are you doing? You're ruining the effect," yeah, the fact that the whole thing's fraud is so.
Well, I did some research into that video, and it seems that it was a joke, an internet joke.
Was it?
It was put on together as a joke, as some kind of humor. So even over there in Africa, they didn't know how to make fun of that kind of stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all it is stupidity too.
Yep.
Okay, let's go on to the next story.
All right. Story number 2. Here we go.
According to a new survey, over the past 50 years, the number of people with no religion in Britain has grown from just 3% to nearly 50% of the population. Among adults 25 and under, nearly 2/3 define themselves as people with no religious affiliation. The findings present an enormous challenge for the churches over how to advertise their faith and to make it appealing to young people in a more liberal world, where many people are appalled at how the male-dominated church leadership discriminates, especially against homosexuals. If this trend continues, Methodists will be extinct in about 30 years, and the Church of England also faces huge declines by the end of this century. Catholics are currently holding their numbers, probably due to the change of management and promises of reform, no matter how false those promises are. But there's a mass movement towards atheism and agnosticism in Britain. The latest data from the first stage of the 2015 British election study, which is a survey of more than 20,000 people by a team of academics from Manchester, Oxford, and Nottingham universities, shows the decline in the younger population of religiosity. In 1963, Anglicans made up 64.5% of those questioned, compared to 31.1% this year. Other Christian denominations also declined from 23.1% to 7.6%, while other faiths grew from 0.6% to 7.5%, and Catholics also grew from 8.6% to 9.1%. The biggest growth was among the atheists and agnostics, though, up from 3.2% to 44.7%.
Up from 3.2% to 44.7%. That is a huge growth. That's amazing. I love that story. Who wrote that one? It wasn't I didn't write that one. So was that
It was Iden.
Iden? Okay, because
And actually, he had put a comment that I was thinking of removing at one point when he says that the Catholic Church has kept its numbers around the same because of promises that they are not going to keep. And I was thinking of removing that, but then again, I thought, let's look at what's happening right now with the Vatican,
right,
where the Pope is trying to put through some changes, and it's not working. It's being turned off. So I decided, nah, because of that kind of stuff going on right now, I thought, there are promises of changes that are not coming through, and it's happening right now on the public scene.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the things that he put into the article, the way that he wrote the article, because he said it really well, and it wasn't overly an attack. It was everything that he said could be legitimately just called factual.
I'm kind of concerned about Methodists going extinct, though. I might have to open a Methodist preserve, start a Catholic. Once we get the population built up, we can release them back into the wild in the UK, just so they don't disappear from the earth anyway.
Yeah. I was well, that's anyway. The Catholics holding on to their own idea, though, the idea that Catholics are not changing in number. They've already lost such a large percentage that having a plateau doesn't really mean much, especially with young Catholics coming up. The church is really driving people away in the way that it's been handling itself. So I can't find fault with that. But I think a lot of people who end up leaving the traditional faiths who are right now calling themselves agnostic or atheists, I think most of the ones that are calling themselves agnostic are probably going to find something within the next 20 years. It's different. I think there's going to be I suspect we'll find some new version of religion, maybe pantheism or some form of deism coming to the fore.
That's what I was thinking in terms of deism, as in, people who believe in a higher power, and leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially all the college kids coming out of AA, because that's what AA teaches.
AA and NA and a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, all of them.
I was going to say a lot of A's, but that.
Yeah, they're all big A's. Speaking of big A's, did you see Kim Kardashian's picture? No, I'm wrong.
Have you ever seen the video of the woman? She has butt implants, and there's one of them that's loose. It flips over.
Oh. No,
yeah, search for butt implant fail on YouTube. It'll come up. Yeah, it starts off, there's a flat side and a rounded side. Well, it has the flat side out on one side of her butt. She reaches around and flips it around the right way. Yeah, it's quite the sight to see.
Yeah, they don't tie those down. They just stick them in and let it go.
Well, it's supposed to be, I guess, but surgeon might have been a little drunk that morning or something when he did the surgery.
Yeah.
Got one cheek floating loose.
Oh, I just took a look.
I'll get it right now. It's like a two girls one cup video where we're watching Nicole's reaction to.
Folks, if you don't want to be grossed out. And the thing is, like, it's like one side is flat and the other side is bulbous, and so it totally flipped around. So it looks like she's got a flat pancake.
Should I put the link in the show notes?
Just Google butt implant fail. Not Google, just check it on YouTube. Butt implant fail. Oh, it's hilarious. Shall we go on to the third story?
Yeah. We're off topic now.
On the evening of October 23rd, at or around 9 p.m., the monument to the Ten Commandments on the ground of the Oklahoma City Capitol building was destroyed when a vehicle piloted by a then unknown trespasser smashed into the 6-foot-tall granite structure before the assailant abandoned his vehicle and fled. The following day, police detained Roland, Oklahoma resident Michael Tate Reed, Jr., a 29-year-old Christian with a history of mental disorders. Reed had been arrested after he presented at the Oklahoma Federal Building making random threats. He has since also confessed to vandalism, saying that Satan had ordered him to demolish the shrine. Reed also admits to having urinated on the rubble before fleeing on foot. The monument had been the focal point of several lawsuits due to the clear violation of several long-standing state-church separation edicts it represents. After news of the monument's destruction broke, the ACLU released a statement which read in part, "The ACLU of Oklahoma and our clients are outraged at this apparent act of vandalism." The statement continues, "Our Oklahoma and federal constitutions seek to create a society in which people of all faiths and those of no faith can coexist as equals without fear of repressions from the government or their neighbors. Whether it's politicians using religion as a political tool or vandals desecrating religious symbols, neither are living up to the full promise of our founding documents."
Yeah, now this story has been, I mean, it got a lot of attention. You know, when they first put up the Oklahoma monument, that got a lot of attention. When the Freedom from Religion Foundation and the ACLU sued, that got a lot of attention. When it was vandalized, that got a lot of attention, and people were just automatically assuming it was an atheist who did it. So the FFRF, that statement that they released was obviously reactionary on their part. I think even they assumed it was an atheist who did it at the time. When everybody found out that it was a Christian who was just a guy with mental disorders, everybody forgot about it. It's like nobody cares anymore. You know, it's like, you know, they're probably just going to rebuild the monument. There's probably a bunch of Christians out there right now raising money to buy a new one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But this story just died. Once they found out that it was not an atheist who did it, that it was actually a Christian, no interest.
Yeah. Yeah, just another guy with mental disorders out vandalizing public property. That's all. So.
Yeah. And let's not get excited over somebody who's mentally disabled. Mentally disturbed. But if it's somebody who's an atheist, then let's get upset about it.
Yeah. When actually, and when it initially happened, when I thought it was an atheist, because I assumed it was an atheist too, I was kind of. Like Emmett Mehta made a statement where he said, you know, we don't support this kind of thing, and I was kind of I was at a loggerhead with that, because in a sense, I agree with that philosophy, that philosophy that the way to fight it is in court, not to, but clearly it is a violation of church and state separation. Clearly, the courts are like bending over backwards to make rulings that favor the monument and letting it stand. So when somebody took it upon themselves, I thought, to take it down, part of me was actually very excited about that. I thought I was that's Rosa Parks on the bus to me, you know. But then it turns out that that's not what it was.
Actually, when I first heard about it, I assumed it was a drunk driver. You know, somebody got liquored up and ran into this monument and took off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I figured, but I guess I was wrong too.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was liquored up, so you were on perfectly.
Yeah, but there was no way that was like, you know, just a driving accident. You know, whoever hit it, where it was located, they had to go after it to get it. You know.
Yeah. You know, by going out and tearing up the lawn at the State House, yeah, it sounds like something you do. You know, sick of paying your taxes, unhappy with the government, go out and slam down a couple of cases of beer and show them what you think, and end up ramming a monument in the process, whether you're trying to or not.
Oh, so you thought he was just like tearing up the lawn, I thought it
was something like that, but yeah, apparently it was more deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Quite deliberate.
Yeah. Years ago, when my dad My dad had already passed, and it was his 75th birthday. This was a couple years ago. I went. It was a really snowy day, and I went up to the cemetery and took a Blatz beer, which was his favorite beer, and just opened it up and poured it on the grave, and like I said, happy birthday, Dad. But it was nighttime, and in order to find it, I turned my car in toward the tombstone so my headlights would be on it. Well, my car had front wheel drive, and I got stuck like over a lip in the cemetery, and couldn't get back out. So I drove forward to turn around and come back out, and got stuck inside the cemetery. I was like just completely turned around, completely stuck in the cemetery, and had to abandon my car and come back the next day for it. Well, it turns out that while I was driving around trying to get out, I tore up the cemetery pretty good while I was trying to get out. And I was not drunk, by the way. When I was trying to get out, I had run over a child's tombstone from the 1800s and completely destroyed it. And they were like waiting for me when I came back to get my car, and I offered to pay for the tombstone and everything, but they got together and decided that I didn't have to because there was no family left. So and the tombstone, I mean, the tombstone was broken, but it was something they could patch. So with some concrete fix, but I felt terrible about that. But so moral of the story is don't be driving around on public ground because you don't know what monuments you can destroy.
Well, the real moral to the story is you should always have a four-wheel drive.
That's the true moral. Yes, that is the true moral. I agree.
Okay. And now I have a surprise for the two of you. Usually I warn you ahead of time what my Christian glitch is going to be. And I didn't this time because this is a real doozy. So prepare yourself.
Several papers wrote articles about us because we had stated that Starbucks is ground zero for Ebola. And we pointed up how these homosexual sodomite persons such as Dr. Craig Spencer, who lives right here in the Harlem area, who is a sodomite, that they frequent, that Starbucks is a place where these types frequent and a lot of body fluids are exchanged there. And Ebola, but the thing that I was not aware of is that there had been some information that had been released, and the Inquisitor online news service carried this as a major story the week before, that what Starbucks was doing is that they were taking specimens of male semen and they were putting it in the blends of their lattes. Now, this is the absolute truth. It's right there. You can see it right there in Inquisitor Online Services. It was a big article about an investigation into Starbucks using male semen and putting it into the blends of coffees that they sell. I mean, can you imagine it? And I believe that they were doing that.
And I believe that they were doing that.
Well, he believes a lot of stupid shit.
The thing is, he didn't read the article. He just read the headline. In the article, it tells you that it's a piece of humor, that it's a joke.
Uh-huh.
But he read the headline and just ran with it.
Yeah. It wasn't the Onion, though.
No, it was not. It was the Inquisitor or whatever.
The Inquisitor, yeah. Because the Onion gets quoted all the time by people who take their stories as in earnest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just how could anybody believe? How could you even possibly think that that's true? But
yeah, a few months back, the Onion ran a story that Planned Parenthood was going to build a mega abortion center, this 6-story massive abortion clinic. And a couple of congressmen got a hold of it, and they fell for the story hook, line, and sinker, and they just ran with it. How evil Planned Parenthood was building this massive, huge abortion clinic, and I mean, you got to read more than the goddamn headline and have some idea of where the story is coming from, because the Onion is pretty well known for being a satire site online. I mean, at least one of their staffers should have caught that, for Christ's sake, before they put out these, before they get the press conference going. You would think that at least one person if all the people working for the congressman would have taken a minute and realized, oh, hey, this is a story from the Onion. We better put the stop to the press conference now.
Yeah.
When it comes to radicals, they don't care. They see the headline and they just run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the story came about because somebody named Samuel went to Starbucks and they misspelled his name on the cup. And, no. They do that all the time at Starbucks. They misspell your name on the cup. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought that I'd give you a nice surprise today.
Yeah.
Did I really take you by surprise with this story?
I wasn't expecting. I've seen that story, but I wasn't expecting that to be your Christian glitches. No, that caught me off guard. Yeah. Yeah, just so the audience knows, normally Nicole gives us a little bit of advance warning what the Christian glitches are going to be, but he decided to keep that one from us today. So our reactions were genuine this time.
I thought it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that I would share a story with you guys about that is making the rounds. I don't know if you folks saw this or not, but the story's been going on for a while about an Iraq war veteran named Thomas Young, who was wounded in Iraq, and he's been not doing well, and he's beginning progressively worse and worse and worse. He was paralyzed except for one arm, I think, and recently he had to have a colostomy, and just his health went down and down and down and down, and he decided to end his own life. But since he couldn't even pull a trigger on a gun or take pills, he decided to starve himself. And so he died this last week of starvation, and they did a story on it on CNN.com. And the reason it's relevant, the reason I brought it up, is because the story, the writer of the story, was very, very reverential, very kind. You know, knew the person personally, attended his wake, and wrote an article about it. And the very last paragraph, I want to read the last paragraph of the article to you, because here's what the writer of the article said. Young was a self-avowed atheist, but somehow I could feel him smiling down at his friends, glad that they were remembering him as a nice guy. Now, what is that noise? Is that just me? Am I the only one hearing that?
I heard some kind of music type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably coming from my end.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this is the way that people who aren't atheists think that they're being considered. It's like I'll pray for you, you know, saying I imagine him smiling down on us from heaven. The guy was an atheist. For one thing, I mean, no disrespect, but if there is a heaven, he ain't there because he's an atheist. You know, if there's a heaven, we're all going to hell. There's no heaven, so I'm not worried about it. But you know, that's what heaven is. That's the belief. So for this, you know, I don't know what, you know.
It's Christian's idea of being nice.
Yeah, it's so. I don't do that. I don't go to Christian funerals and say, you know, I'm sorry that he's actually in oblivion now. You know, you don't do that. So.
It's like Christopher Hitchens used to say, you know, going to somebody who's dying in a hospital and asking them to convert, you know, to put their trust in Jesus is a horrible thing, because he says, how would you like it if I were to go around to hospitals telling people who are dying, you've wasted your entire life trusting in Jesus.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. It's not. It's, you know, it's a convention. I understand that it's a convention, and that's their default. You know, they just fall back on that as an automatic thing. But the guy was writing an article. You know, it wasn't. That's not a default. That's him purposefully, directly, and intentionally slighting other atheists you know, and by default, the guy he's trying to be reverential to.
Yep.
Yeah. Isn't the phrase self-avowed atheist, both kind of redundant, and it's also kind of, I think you kind of meant it as a bit of a slight, just the kind of the tone that it's used in. But yeah, self-avowed, what other kind of avowed would there be?
Right.
Even if, self-avowed atheist, self-avowed Christian, what, do you need somebody else to give you the official stamp? Or
yeah, it's passive aggressive. It's a passive aggressive veiled insult to say self-avowed, because it's like saying, well, you're not really an atheist. There really are no atheists. Nobody doesn't believe in God. You're just somebody who claims not to believe in God. Is what it's saying. That's what it's saying.
Yeah, it's kind of the feeling I got from it, but couldn't quite put it into words.
Yeah. You said it right. You said it good.
Yeah. Well, it's a good story, and it's sad that it ended this way for the guy. That not the other one wanted to be respectful, and he wasn't.
Yeah. He and I appreciate that he was probably trying to cushion it for, non-atheist readers. But if he didn't even mention it in the rest of the story that the guy was an atheist. So he didn't have to mention it at the end. And he didn't have to say anything about smiling down from above, If anything, if the guy is in heaven, for say, and he is looking down at this, he's probably looking down, not smiling, but going, "What the fuck? I was wrong. Jeez."
I was wrong, but I made it anyway. Yay!
Made it anyway. Yeah. Don't write that I'm an atheist. They haven't figured it out yet. Clearly.
There's a animated short on YouTube called The Saga of Bjorn, and you have to Google that or look it up on YouTube and watch it. It's hilarious. This poor Viking winds up in heaven. He's getting old and he wants to die a warrior's death, and he finally manages to pull it off, and these nuns bury him and they give him a Christian burial. And I won't ruin it for you. I'll let you look it up.
It's an animated series?
It comes from the YouTube channel is called Viborg Animation. There's an animation film school in Denmark that puts out these videos or student videos, and maybe every 4 or 5 months they'll post a bunch of videos, either like their bachelor's projects, to get your bachelor's degree, or some of them are first year, but they put out a lot of really interesting animation. But the Saga of Bjorn, try and find that one, and also one called Blackwater Gospel. That's another really good video animation.
Okay. I'll try to find those and put them in the show notes.
Okay.
Well, I found the Saga of Bjorn, so I will.
Cool.
I've got that one found. And what's the other one called?
It's called Blackwater Gospel.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was made by Danes.
It's
because it sounds very American.
Oh yeah, it's in English. It is. This one is, and so is the narration, at least on this version of the Saga of Bjorn. But some of them are in different languages. Whatever language the student wants to make it in, I assume. Because there's some of them that are in Hungarian and different European languages, and there's even a few that are actually in Danish too. Yes, a lot of them are just they don't have any dialogue. So
okay.
yeah, it's a pretty interesting little channel if you want to check them out.
Yeah, I'll have to look for those. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Movies. I like movies that are so well done that they don't need a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like what was the French one from a few years ago? A few years, probably a decade or more. But the twins of
the triplets of Belleville.
The triplets of Belleville.
Yeah.
No, it's a French movie, but the thing is, you watch it without script, and I mean, you don't even. There's no actual words to the movie, and you know exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean, a lot of the episodes of Mr. Bean, there's no speaking.
Yeah. There's a movie from years ago. It had Cornell Wilde in it. The Naked Prey. Cornell Wilde is set in the late 1800s, I think. He's guiding a safari, and one of the local tribes wants to charge him a toll to go across their land. Well, the group he's leading, refuses, and they basically, insult the tribe, who of course takes offense to that sort of thing, and he gets captured. Most of the people get killed, and he escapes. But probably about 85% of the movie, there's no dialogue at all. It's just Cornell trying to escape through Africa, get back to town, and it's a really good movie if you ever get a chance to check that one out too. It's called The Naked Prey.
Have you seen Aguirre, The Wrath of God?
I think I did quite a while ago.
Klaus Kinski plays a Spanish. Yeah, it's really good, and it's language. What dialogue there is in it is in German, although it's supposed to be Spanish. You don't even need to speak German to understand what's going on. And that whole movie, you can watch that whole movie without subtitles and not care what they're saying, because it really doesn't matter. It's the visuals is what tells the story of that.
Yeah.
In that whole.
Yeah, it's like that with The Naked Prey. There's maybe 15, 20 minutes of dialogue in the beginning of the movie, but after that, it's all just, the scenery and everything else, and you can tell exactly what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a movie that William Shatner made. I can't think of what it's called, but the whole thing's in Esperanto.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that movie?
No.
It's ridiculous. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. The story is like a Twilight Zone kind of thing, but the whole thing's in Esperanto, which is a language. You know what Esperanto is, right?
Yeah.
It's a made up language. So there's a scene. His character's named Marco, and there's a scene where he's walking through like these moors, and this woman's yelling, "Marco!" And every time they yell Marco, I yell,
Oh yes.
It's pretty funny. But anyway, but that's not a thing that anybody else does. That's just me. But it's William Shatner speaking Esperanto is hilarious, and it's another movie where you really don't need to know the language in order to watch the movie.
Well, let's just say that Shatner speaking anything is kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, he's acting over the top, like always, in Esperanto. It's it's like Ipula I Masarata. It's really funny. So.
Oh well.
Okay. Well, let's bring this Movember episode to a close. That's Nicole happened to mention before we came on the air that it's Movember, Mustache Awareness Month or whatever. What is it? It's about what's Movember?
Movember, it's cancer for men, but the way to make people aware of that, like prostate cancer,
is prostate
everybody grows a mustache, so to accentuate the idea that we're men and there's cancer for men too.
Right. So none of us have shaved this month.
No, exactly.
I suppose I could have waxed my mustache and rolled it up.
Okay. Well, so that's all for today, folks. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Surge, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To in our intro. We'd also like to thank Mudbrooker for participating in today's podcast. Thank you very much again, Muddy. Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NicoleSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/LupaLanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yay!